touch base with some of these lyrics today. Song started out with, when it rains, it pours. It's hard to breathe when all you know is the struggle of staying above the rising water line. You know, the holidays bring attention to not being able to having in-person celebrations with our loved ones, or mostly. And you know, it sucks, doesn't it? It sucks. A friend of mine wrote recently that he said, just want to have a big cry every day. That's normal, right? And another mutual friend of ours replied to him and said, I'm on an every other day schedule. Keeps me from getting dehydrated. And I replied, normal, healthy, required, and somehow refreshing. The release has opened my heart, though it's also increased my Kleenex budget. It's like a cloud, a shadow hanging over us. And winter doesn't help, does it? This whole holiday season in this pandemic. But what do we learn from this shadow that's going on? The shadow that is seemingly around us, and the shadows that are within our personalities. What do we learn from the dark of winter, or the shadows that are being cast from our past in any season? I asked myself this week, is there some richness available in the shadow place? We're taught perfect God, perfect man, woman, he, she, they, them, perfect person, perfect being. That God is the light that dissolves darkness. There's a unity prayer that says, the light of God surrounds me, the love of God enfolds me, the power of God protects me, the presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. We humans may not be perfect in daily life. However, in our spiritual beingness, our spiritual life, we are. We are perfect, we are whole, we are complete. And thus we hold the potential to move that over into our physical reality. Now, we're taught, and I've said it myself many times, to look beyond the conditions. In fact, spiritually, to turn away from them, aligning our consciousness with the divine pattern of this wholeness, this completeness, this perfection. And we also understand that sometimes we need healing and forgiveness of the invisible wounds in our soul. Those things that tend to show up when we get triggered, you know, those triggered reactions we have when we're like, where did this come from? How did I react to what he or she said, or what happened here or there, or the honking of the horn, or the laugh? How did I get triggered? What is this reaction? And it also, these triggers, these shadows in our lives, they get in the way. They make trouble with our manifesting abilities. When we edge out God with limiting thoughts, it seats us in the shadow of our fears and of our limited thinking and the subconscious ideas of not enoughness, not deservingness, victimhood, regret, shame, blame, guilt, all that crap. It puts us in that pool. It's not the pool we want to be in, is it? This lockdown, this semi-lockdown, this stay-at-home thing, this very limited public gathering stuff. I see and I hear as I talk to people and listen in around, it's inviting more loneliness now in this holiday season, more boredom, more frustration. People started getting, I don't want to say used to it, but getting past it, getting through it. But the holiday season's kind of bubbling it up again. And it's allowed some of these shadow traits to rear their ugly heads. So what do? How do we remember the spiritual truth of who we are? Well, I went and ran to see if I had this book that Gary was talking about. It's up to you. And I did. And I was just flipping through it for a second, and I found a page, and he was talking about, Ernest Holmes was talking about, who are you? And he said, standing within and back of each one of us is God, the eternal presence as us, that there is nothing between us and it but our belief. Therefore, the thesis is that every man, meaning every person, is God. Is God. So with that power and presence behind us, I think the thing we want to start with is we might want to actually welcome the shadow, the fear, the isolation, whatever you name it. Welcome it. Become aware of the feelings that are being called by it. Inferior, worthless, unworthy. Welcome that primitive side, those feelings of our dark side. Welcoming them doesn't mean they're staying home with you. Open ourselves up to recognizing them, to being aware of them. Satirist Jonathan Swift reminded us that real vision is the ability to see the invisible. And these shadow ideas, these shadow feelings, this dark side of us sits in the invisible, in the subconscious. And when we have the ability to see them, when we have that real vision, then we can work with them. Because seeing, recognizing, revealing it, and its seemingly continuous presence is stepping onto the path of healing and transforming it, even ridding ourselves of it. You gotta feel to heal. You gotta feel to heal. I'm sure most of you recognize the 5 stages of grief and loss, which are shock and denial, anger and pain and guilt, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, which also includes forgiveness and healing. Now, as the title of my talk gives you the idea, I have 4 ideas of how to get through what's going on in our lives right now. And we want to begin with, as my friend suggested, is becoming a little constant in his life, is just weep. Give a good old cathartic cry about it. Why? Because there's great things that come out of good cathartic cry. One is it has a soothing effect. It relieves pain and promotes a sense of well-being and enhances the mood. It does. When you're done, don't you feel a little bit relieved? It doesn't mean the sadness totally goes away. I'm not saying that it's some magic spell, although it could be. But because of the chemicals that are released, scientific studies have shown that it relieves pain. It promotes a sense of well-being. It enhances the mood. It releases toxins. That's what's going on. It relieves stress. It lowers the blood pressure and thus could aid in sleep. Like babies, a good cry for babies aids them in their sleep. It also fights bacteria and helps to reduce risks presented by bioterror agents if you happen to be somewhere near them. Tearing, crying, releases those toxins. It's like that whole idea of the dirty water glass, and you keep pouring fresh water in there. What happens eventually is that dirty water becomes the fresh water. The fresh water cleanses the dirty water. So too with your tears, it cleanses through all these endorphins and oxytocin and all these chemical ideas clears the system. And it improves your vision, actually. Moistens the eyes. Don't throw away your eyeglasses necessarily, but it's one of the things that a good cathartic cry could do. A good cry is a great thing. Have at it. Next, after the good cry, you might want to rage a bit. Now, rage, I was thinking a little this week, I was thinking rage may not be the best word for it, as I was looking at the dictionary definition of rage. Maybe fury, no. Let's say intense but controllable anger. That doesn't fit well in the little 4 things, but that's what we want our rage to be. Intense but controllable anger. And anger, usually is something, is a feeling that shows up when we feel like we have no control. That's where anger usually shows up. We don't have control over it. And most of the time, we do have control over it. In fact, all the time we have control over it because we always have control over our reaction to the experience that has brought on this anger, whether it is an experience we created or that was created around us. So go ahead and do that classic thing. Find a pillow you don't really like. Maybe it was a gift you didn't feel so great about, but you didn't feel good about tossing it out, because you never know when that person might come over and go, well, what happened to, don't you put out that pillow? Find it. Tear it to pieces, however you want to do it. Throw it around, tear it to pieces. And if somebody ever asks about it, just say, you know what? It was COVID. COVID made me do it. And Agnes will understand. See, denying these feelings, their short but necessary due, denies you the experience of the correction of it and results in an unconscious inner conflict, which can suddenly erupt as aggression. That's what those triggers are. It may not be an intense aggression. It could be something a little smaller, a smirk, something, a look, but it's still an aggression. The dark side, whether from past hurts or mind chatter or this COVID crap, is a part that wants to come out. It wants to say hi. It wants to be hugged, forgiven, and released. It doesn't want to sit there. Sitting there is a habit we allow. Recognizing the shadow can be the catalyst towards change and enlightenment, really. Enlightenment. It's soothing that child within you, that inner child. That's really what's going on. That's really what holds on to this anger, this aggression, this trigger, these habits. It's that inner child. We have to see them, hug them, forgive them. Jacob Lieberman wrote, "A shadow is produced when an object blocks light. Whenever we block the light guiding our life, we create a shadow. Only when we are transparent and in alignment with the source of light, as when the sun is directly overhead, does the shadow magically disappear. Only when we are transparent and in alignment." When I get defensive or triggered or upset, I quickly take the time to recognize why. And sometimes I even look into where and when. I don't really go on a witch hunt to shame myself. I just want to be informed. So I can go, oh, yeah, that's what triggered me when so-and-so said this or smiled at that in a way that I felt insulted or belittled or something, when they more than likely didn't even mean that. I got triggered, and that's where it comes from, and I am healing that right now. So why are these feelings, thoughts charged with negative energy? And who is really in charge of them? Well, me, you. We're the ones that allow it to be charged. So then I usually just apologize and communicate about what the heck was going on with my end of this triggerness, whatever that triggerness comes out as. And thus that puts me on the road or even the finish line of healing. Another verse in the song said, if you could see what I see, you'd be blinded by the colors, yellow, red, and orange, and green, and at least a million others. So tie up the boat, take off your coat, just take a look around. The source and substance of our supply is the source and substance of our healing. So now that we've wept, now that we've raged, let's take the time to breathe. The third of our 4 stages in our reactions to the shadows that just pop up in life. Ernest Holmes wrote in The Science of Mind, we can sit in the shade or move into the sunshine. Sitting in the shadow, we do not really believe that there is any sunshine, but the sun would be there all the time. And all the time we are in bondage. The real freedom still exists. The sun still shines. He continues, it is there, but we must awake to it. Control the subjective and do not let it control us. So control the subconscious mind. We can tap into it, what he calls the subjective mind, and control it. Do not mistake, he said, the shadow for the reality, the form for real substance, the hollow voice for a revelation, and thereby be misled. Hear the voice. Take control of the voice. The monkey mind, the mind chatter, whatever you want to call it. You know, a pandemic is a terrible thing to waste. I say that ironically. Observe where you are defensive, what easily triggers and upsets you. This is a great time to do it because the condition around us is triggering us a lot, and understandably so. And at the same time that we observe this, we can cultivate this recognition of our divinity and our unrestricted self-love and start vibrating at the speed of the divine as we reveal this divine, as we remember who we are. Because as Casey Musgraves says at the end of the song, because the sky has finally opened, the rain and wind stop blowing, let go of your umbrella. Because darling, I'm just trying to tell you that there's always been a rainbow hanging over your head, and it'll all be all right. Today is actually St. Nicholas Day. St. Nicholas, of course, is the inspiration for Santa Claus. So I want to ask you to gift yourself the power of weep, rage, breathe, and then, of course, take the final step, which is to sing. Sing praises to the divine in you. That is you. Sing praises to who you are. Through the power of weep, rage, breathe, sing, you shall call forth the assistance that is all around us, that is within us, to release this shadow or shadows. With awareness, with venting, with affirmative prayer, you shall bring the song of joy, light, love, prosperity, health, and peace into your life. Weep, rage, breathe, sing, and let love light the way. Namaste.